was done with, and this is completely where statistics comes into play here, okay? It was done with 1,200 students. Okay.
No, it was University of Minnesota.
I'm reading it right here. It was done with 1,200 students, grade 9 to 12.
That's not
And a
the-
change in start time from 7:45 to 8:45.
That's not the study. It was from University of Minnesota from April of 2021. It was 18,000 students.
Okay, so here's the same place that's doing it, and they come up with a totally different thing and it's an hour and 25 minutes later they did the study.
There have been so many studies with so many timeframes. There's some with 15 minutes, there's some with 20 minutes, there's some with an hour and a half. But the bottom line is every single one, it has positive benefits for kids.
Yeah.
Every single one. I haven't found one, and I've looked. I
Right,
haven't
but
found
guys,
one
this
that
is
says there's no.
academia.
I don't
When
see it.
people in academia, when people are using research to defend a decision, you cite it, you share it with
So
people.
find me something that
It's not
says.
my job to go find the research you're citing. If you are
No, I
making
have
a
the
point,
research on
then
my side
share it
because
with us.
he's-
I've been asking for a week for
Okay,
research.
there you
No one
go.
has even sent me a
May I
link.
respond for a moment?
Please.
2 years ago, when this was discussed more prominently with the then board, the research was shared with the board members. Reports were given by me on a regular basis via superintendent reports. All of those documents, with the exception of our new folks, were shared. That data hasn't changed.
Then please share it. We're
Again,
hearing it. Yes. Karen,
Okay.
this is academia. If someone is using research to defend a decision, which I respect, I'm in academia, please share the research. As I think it was Ray stated, there's all different research. There's quality research, there's non-quality research. As Martin stated, you have to look at the study, you have to look at the samples, you have to look at the demographics. There's so many different points. Just because someone's doing research doesn't mean it's quality research.
I completely
And
agree with
if
that.
and I agree. So if someone is saying, I think it was Adina, there's new research from 2021, please share it. Because I'm more than happy to sit down. I have journals delivered to me at home. I'm constantly reading research for my own professional position. If people are going to sit here and argue and say, I have research, please, this is academia. Please share the research. That's all I'm going to ask about because this is.
Okay, well, you
So I
you
wanna-
were on the.
I would like to just open
Well,
it up
Ray-
to see
I
if there are
mean,
other board
Charles-
members
yeah,
who have not
Charles
had an
didn't get to
opportunity
speak.
to weigh in that would like to weigh in.
Charles?
I guess if I wanted to say, I was bottom of 5:15. I was 6 o'clock in the morning, get on the bus, drove all the way up to Conway. My bus ride was over an hour, I feel like, every day. So I understand the move. I guess my issue is, and I spoke with you about this, Karen, is I would have liked to see this if it was going to go more than 15 minutes. I don't mind if we did 15 minutes this year, another 15 minutes next year or whatever. I don't know if there's that great of a benefit for 15 minutes. But the other concern I have, if we're leaving 15 minutes, or we're going to school later 15 minutes, these kids that are in the sports, are they leaving class 15 minutes earlier for the buses? Because we still have, if the rest of the county's not doing this, they're not moving their stuff, how do we make it to the games on time? And how do we, because that's more of a concern to me.
Sure. The rest of the county's times start at 7:20
Okay.
to 7 to 5, 7:30, 7:35. And
in the
again,
afternoon, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, and in the afternoon, that would match up. As a matter of fact, by moving it, it matches up with the time.
Athletic competitions don't typically start until 4. So there is travel time. But our students have had ample time and will still have ample time to get to their competition and be prepared to start their game or their match. I mean, last year to dismiss at
1:55.
1:55, students are now dismissing at 2:10, right?
Yes, there have been, I've been in that building for my career, and there have been discussions about the starting time since I've been here, and it's been pushed back a couple of times. I think the vast majority of staff, and I think some of our students as well, believe that the high school starts too early. Now, Charles, yours is a nuanced position, but it's one that's probably appropriate, which is maybe 15 minutes doesn't make a difference. but it certainly is heading in the direction of acknowledging that we start too early. We've always had the situation where we have the tiered buses and we have a very large community. So we know that it's going to affect the back end. There's absolutely. So I know that all of these arguments, but I'm just going to put in perspective. The vast majority of people, I believe, who work in the high school, and I believe many of our students feel that we start too early. It's a simple truth.
Because we do. We do. It's
And
undeniable.
Okay,
and you're going to
We
have
agree.
small
You agree.
children, you're going to have small children going home in the dark.
We already have small
They
children.
already do
going
come
in
home in the dark.
Okay,
I
so
think we have-
Dr. hold
Yeah.
on, just Charles had the opportunity to weigh in. I know that Joe is at home and it can be hard to jump in. I want to see if he wanted to weigh in at all. So everybody has an opportunity to speak.
He's muted.
Not anymore.
I'm unmuted now, and I don't think it's a good idea. I found out about it on the beach one day that we were changing our start times, and I looked like such a fool to, I don't know anything about it. Yeah, I am on the Board of Education. However, I don't think it's a good idea. The reason why I don't think it's a good idea is it affects all of our parents. I mean, our parents commute long distances to start their jobs. I know they have to get home as well too, but we have historically commuted long distances because that's where we live in Vernon, and it's a long way. And I think it impacts families more than you think, and it impacts our staff as well. Maybe it's favorable to the high school teachers, but I don't think it's favorable to the lower grades. Some of the teachers are getting out at 4:15, and then what? It limits tutoring opportunities. I'm not in favor of it. I would like to reverse it myself.
I would like to
Okay.
reverse it as well. So I'm asking if we could put a motion together
So
that we
I
can
don't think
reverse
we,
it.
So I'd like to-
I don't think we have the authority to do
I'm
that.
I'm speaking to our president, Jen.
So I wanted to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to weigh in.
I just have one more question,
Go ahead.
if I could. I was started asking it before, and this question is for Dr. McKay. You had said that you think that some of the students feel a certain way.
Yeah, I do.
Have we asked our kids?
No, we haven't.
I've asked some kids.
No, not some kids. Have
No,
we
I
asked?
agreed.
Have we asked the student body how they feel about it? Have we asked the whole faculty how they feel about it? These are the people who are affected the most.
Mhm.
So I would think the logical progression would be to ask them how they feel about it.
Mhm.
And we haven't done that.
I agree with Martin.
I mean, I would also just like to state how I found out about this, because I felt, like Joe said, I felt a little foolish. Someone asked me about it and I knew nothing about it, nothing. And then as a parent, I opened an email and read an email as a parent, and I thought to myself, that's weird. I didn't know school started then. That's how I found out. So I mean, I see your point. And then I know from commuting, if I get out to Route 23, 15 minutes later, my whole morning is just shot at that point. Granted, I am fortunate, my children are older, so it's not an issue. But if I had younger children, there's no way I'm such a short notice too, on like 3 to 4 weeks notice before school begins. That's the other thing. If this was an issue that was brought up in the spring or the winter of last year, I understand it was COVID, but possibly in the spring, this may be, then parents could adjust. But that's a big concern I have. I know driving out to Route 23, if I don't get over those railroad tracks or that light and shooting down Route 23, you just sit there. 15 minutes is a lifetime on Route 23.
We are not the Board of Commuters, we're the Board of Education. We're supposed to do what's best for our students. That's our primary directive, to do what's best for our students for their education, not to think about someone on Canisteo or whatever road. And also, just as many parents might be helped by this with their commute coming back. You don't know. We haven't
No,
done
I
that
don't
survey
know.
either. We're just guessing here. Oh, it might
Right,
be
but that
disruptive to some
builds on
parents.
Martin's
Might be
point.
great
We're
for some
guessing.
parents.
No one asked the parents, no one asked the faculty, no one
It's-
asked the students.
And no one asked
even
the Board of
us.
No
Not
one
that
even
we're
talked to
not
the Board of Ed.
administrative.
So I want to take an opportunity to also weigh in. I wanted to make sure I gave space for everybody to speak first. I look at this as two separate issues, and I said earlier, I don't think that we should conflate the two. I believe that we should have spoken about this last month prior to this decision being made. Because, we do I think that we know what issues rise to the level of the concern of the board, and this is one of them that has been a concern of the board for some time. So if we were going to make this change, we should have spoken about this sooner in the summer. That at the same time, I have for years supported later school start times. I believe that it is a well-studied topic, that it is generally accepted in most circles that adolescent teens need sleep and their bodies sleep later into the morning. It's based on their biology. I don't believe that 15 minutes is going to change the world on that, but I do believe that it is a step in the right direction for where I would like to see us and other districts around the county go, because it is certainly needed, in my opinion. So that is my position on this, but we've all shared our position, but it really is ultimately up to the administration.
But I'd like
on
to
what
make
they
a
recommend.
motion to reverse it.
It's not our, we
Jen,
don't, do we
please,
have that right?
I'm speaking to
Okay,
the
I'm
president.
saying, do we have that right? I
The
have the right to
superintendent would
ask
have
that
to make a
question.
recommendation on that.
Well, I'm asking for a motion for that.
So the superintendent would have to make the recommendation to approve that.
She has the vast majority of the board members that are unhappy with the decision. That we didn't even discuss it. We weren't even told.
Being unhappy with not being, having it discussed is not the same as being. unhappy.
We have a board of education for a reason, Jen.
Yeah. I
We should
know,
be able
about
to weigh
educating
in.
students.
This was very embarrassing. I'm the vice president of the
It's not
board
supposed to
and
be
had a
about your
community
ego.
member call
It's
me.
not supposed to
say-
be about your ego. It's supposed to be about
It
what's
has
best for
nothing to do with my
students.
ego. I had
Then why are you
no
talking
idea.
about you
I
not
had
having
no
any
idea that when they called me, I had no
That has
idea
nothing
that
to
there
do
was a
with what's
change.
Best for our students. That has to do with something else. It has nothing to
I-
do with what's best.
I
Mr.
agree that-
Annunziato?
Yes.
I'd like to put a motion on the table for the board to compel our superintendent to reverse her decision.
I second that.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a procedural clarification from the board secretary. Does the board have the authority to make a motion to direct the superintendent of that?
I don't believe so. I can try to reach out to Nathania. I've never seen this before, so I don't.
Yeah, that is not something I've ever seen before, but
We
I'm certain.
absolutely
I would like
can
the
make a
motion to go through and we can throw it out if it's no good.
Yes.
It has a second on the table. It's up for discussion now, and then it has to go for a roll call.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second. I would like to ask the board to consider for 5 minutes to table that motion, so we could take a very brief recess, and I will call the board attorney right now and ask her if that is something that we can do. So I'm gonna make a motion to table that,
Second.
okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion's tabled. I'm gonna also make a motion to ask for a 5-minute recess.
Second?
Okay,
Any motion, sorry.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the board is in a 5-minute recess.
Joe, you're here?
Are we on? Okay, great. All right, can I have a motion to return to open session?
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Okay, I did have an opportunity to call the board attorney and she has advised that that is permissible. So thank you, everybody, for letting me clarify that. on a
And thank you for
proceed-
checking.
Yeah,
Justin. That was-
on a procedural basis. So there was a motion on the table, which was tabled by the motion was made by Mr. O'Donnell and seconded by Ms. Mitchell to direct the superintendent of schools to reverse the school start times to the previous.
I'm sorry, Justin, what was the word? Say that again?
Direct the superintendent
No,
of
the word was
schools.
not direct. It's compel. Two very different words. We can't direct the superintendent to change her mind on
Yes, we
this.
can.
Yeah,
we can.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't think we
because
could. I
Nathaniel-
apologize.
Nathaniel said we
Yeah,
can.
by law, and I mean, I knew the answer, but I'm glad that you talked to the attorney. By law, the board by majority consensus can direct the superintendent to just about anything.
Except for personnel matters.
Right,
Is what
yes,
the
except for-
is
yeah.
what the board attorney
Right.
advised. She said
She-
we
she
cannot
just-
direct on
Motion was
personnel
felt
matters.
anyway.
Yes, I know. That's why I made the motion.
Okay.
So I'm going to, I don't know if I have to remove my motion to reset,
It's been tabled, so it's tabled.
No, but I use the word compel.
Okay, so would you like to make a new motion?
Direct.
I'd like to make a new motion to direct
The superintendent.
superintendent to change the time back to what it was before.
I second.
Okay, that's been motioned by Mr. O'Donnell, and second by Ms. Mitchell. And questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say that given that pretty much most of the people on this board have agreed with the science in the past, and it seems as if what's swaying certain people is the fact that they weren't told is pretty sad. I think that we should be doing what's best for our students and not have our own pride in the way of that.
I would just like to add that I'm disappointed that we're sitting here micromanaging decisions
That too.
that have been talked about for years.
And micromanaging at all.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata,
No.
Mr. Semaglia,
I'm sorry, what does a no mean and what does a yes mean?
A no means that you're not voting to direct the superintendent to change the.
Okay,
Yes
thank
means
you.
are voting to direct her.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Semaglia,
I just want to say, Karen, I think this is your decision, I think. This is what we're gonna grade you on, so I'm gonna say this is a no. It's up to you.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
No,
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right,
Can we
thank
go
you.
back to
Yes, item number
mask
5.
mandate?
Okay. Governor's Order 251 indicates that all school districts must comply with the mandatory use of face masks by student, staff, and visitors in the indoor portion of school premises. The mandate, as you know, also notes exceptions such as extreme heat indoors, when a person is unable to breathe, when an IEP or 504 precludes a face mask, when performing an activity that cannot be done with a face mask, such as eating or drinking, playing an instrument, or if someone is engaged in high-intensity physical activity or unable to operate equipment or execute a task. The Vernon Township School District, as a public school district, is required to comply with the governor's executive order. All Sussex County schools are following the mask mandate. Out of abundance of concern for the spread of COVID-19 and to keep many unvaccinated persons safe, such as those under age 13 who have not yet been approved for the vaccine, we will be following this order. I'm grateful to our faculty and staff. Our anecdotal data puts the percentage of vaccinated employees at between 80 and 90%. of our district employees. This has been done to prevent the spread of COVID, to minimize their own risk of getting ill, and to protect our children, our district's most valuable assets. I think somebody reported earlier this evening about statistics of vaccine rates of high school and middle school students. Our high school, I think it was Noreen Brethold, pardon me if I have that wrong. Our high school actually is over, for our students, is over 40%, and our middle school is about 20%. So our rates are higher than the data that was shared for outside of our community. I'm aware of the concerns of mask wearing and the challenges associated with wearing a mask for prolonged periods of time. To that end, mask breaks will be utilized often, and we are encouraging as much use of our outdoor areas as possible. Last year and this year, we have outdoor tents set up for lunches as well as outdoor classroom spaces. I know that masks are not required at the mall or in food stores, and that can be frustrating for many. However, the mask mandate clearly extends to all public schools in New Jersey. Children need to be in school with their peers and teachers, learning and socializing. I think I'd rather have our students in school with masks than not here. I also wanted to respond to Ms. Guzman. She had a couple of questions. She wanted to know why in the spring that we were not wearing masks and we are now. In June, we were green, according to the Cali index. That's the COVID activity level index. I shared some of that data with the board in June of last year. The whole state is yellow right now based on the Delta variant and COVID. The Delta variant in Sussex County last week, according to the CDRSS report that I get weekly, made up 80% of cases in Sussex County. So the Delta variant is the dominant variant that we're seeing all over the country, but locally as well. And the COVID activity level index is based on transmission rates, COVID-like illnesses, et cetera. And I think the other comment one of our family members had was about social distancing versus socially active. I don't want the public to misunderstand the importance of the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant, the activities of our schools, and that we can be physically distanced from each other, wear masks, and still promote social engagement for our children, which is essential to their development. As far as the mask mandate goes, I was again asked to have this on the agenda. As a public school, we are required to follow the governor's order 251.
Any input or comments or questions from the board?
I just had a comment about our question, actually. So if we're all wearing masks, again, this is required by the state that we do this. Are we gonna do, I think last year we had some time when the kids can take mask breaks. And I remember some of the board meetings towards the end of the year where there seemed to be a discrepancy between, like, I think one of the parents brought up walk run, where some schools were saying they could wear the mask and some weren't. So are we going to have something more formal put out there?
This order is more clear than last year in the spring because the mask mandate is for indoors only in schools. So that means that outside at recess, outside at lunch, outside for walk run, outside before children enter the building. Of course, on the bus, they have to wear a mask, right? But outside, masks are not required. That should be clearer, I hope.
So will we still try to do as many classes outside as we can?
Yeah, when Dr. McKay and I met with the administrative team yesterday, tents will be going back up. We're really encouraging the use of outdoor classrooms as much as possible. I mean, what we have learned about COVID is that fresh air circulation, distance, and mask wearing are the best, and hand washing and hand sanitizing are the most important preventative measures that we can take. The shields that we had and the face shields and the additional PPE, the wiping down of surfaces is not necessarily something that combats the virus because we know it doesn't exist or live on surfaces. It's still transmitted, in the air through particles. So yes, we're encouraging the use of outdoor classrooms, outdoor learning spaces. We know that it gets cold up here quickly, but we're going to try to maximize the use of our outdoor time as much as possible.
I have one more question because you just brought up a speech. So speech was a big thing. With the mask, they can't really see them form the words with the shields. It's hard to hear the kids. Do we have a new plan to address that for this year now?
I mean, a lot of our speech teachers were using clear masks so that students could see the way the mouth is formed and so that they can work on their diction and pronunciation as the students were going through speech. Unfortunately, the mask mandate doesn't talk about the removal of masks during speech class because it's not one of those categories. And the things are things you can't do with a mask on, right? You can speak with a mask on, even though maybe we don't speak well or we can't understand each other as well. According to the guidance, and again, this is the state, this is not the district, things like aerobic activity, eating can't be done with a mask on. They have not given us specific guidance on speech right now. Our teachers did a phenomenal job last year of modifying their practices so that children could learn and the teachers could monitor the children. So our teachers are really, really skilled in working with our students. I'm sure they've already established a ton of workarounds. I don't believe one is completely removing the mask for the entire class period, but I'm sure that they're working on ways to facilitate speech lessons with children.
Additional questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you.
Good. Recommendation 1, it is recommended that the board approve the following faculty, staff resignations, retirements, termination, leaves, transfers, assignment changes, appointments, stipend, salary adjustments, student teaching, mentoring as listed. It begins at the bottom of page 3, goes to page 4, 5, 6, and the top of page 7.
And the addendum.
And the addendum, sorry about that.
Okay. We have a motion for recommendation 1.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Looking on here, it looks like the Italian teachers retiring in December. That's halfway through the school year. What's our plan? Are we replacing her? Do we have somebody? I'm curious as to what the plan is, given that kids are going to be taking a full semester of Italian,
Absolutely.
a full year, and what's going to happen halfway through.
We have started to explore that. As we've talked about before with world language, there's not folks out there, but we are exploring that with people who we would certify through the alternate route program, who work in international schools, et cetera. So we do have one lead on that, and Vinny and I have been, Mr. Gagliostro and I have been exploring that, and we will pursue that because we do have a few months before we lose our Italian teacher.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for asking that question, because it does point to the difficulties when some of our valued employees retire.
That's one of the world languages. And
World
then high
language
school
is
science.
really tough.
Those are some of the
What would
toughest
happen?
certs.
What would happen if you don't replace? Do these
You would
kids- do
have
the
to, a couple of years ago, one of our local schools went through this with their German program, and it made the news. What you have to do is you have to continue to offer that. So you would go to an EduCia program, a computer program, and then you'd have to have someone working as a teacher to help with that. You might be able to find someone who's not certified in the field, but at least is comfortable with world language, Romance languages, because Italian and Spanish. And then you try to get through, but then you have to make an announcement to the community that if we can't find anybody, we have to start moving the ones into a new program and possibly the twos into a new program as we no longer have anything. But I'm putting the cart before the horse. We are pursuing this with, like I said, one lead that we do have, thanks to the Italian teacher presently, who is retiring. And we will continue to do that. But we're struggling with all of our world language.
Does the EduCia program offer something that's the second half? Would that create a problem?
No, what we would do is we would work with the teacher who is retiring to say, where are you? And then modify it based on the units in EduCia.
Okay, I got it.
And we have a license with them.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Luther? Yes. Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Item 2, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of teachers and child study team staff as part of the recertification SCM Safe Crisis Management Training at a rate of $143 per person per recertification training at 8 hours.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conklin. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Luther.
Yes.
Item 3, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of part-time aides as part of the initial or recertification SCM Safe Crisis Management Training. Training will be paid at the indicated hourly rate. Initial training is 16 hours, recertification is 8 hours. The chart is on the bottom of page 8, continues on page 9, and also on the addendum.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 3?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Questions or comments? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Abstain.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Item 4, it is recommended that the board approve the following appointment for additional 2021 summer CST work.
We have a motion for recommendation 4.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Item 5, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of teachers to provide instruction at summer professional development sessions for certified staff on August 25th and/or 26th, pending enrollment.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 5?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Item
Motion.
6, I'm sorry. Item 6, it is recommended that the board approve the following staff for athletic site managers at the high school as needed and the total hours for all site managers not to exceed 150 hours.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 6?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lutner. Questions or comments?
I just have a quick question, and I always say the only dumb question is one not asked, but what's an athletic site manager?
Additionally, we've given a stipend to someone who assists the athletic director. So if the athletic director is at a meet somewhere else or goes to another athletic event at another school, that person is in charge at the high school. And then when multiple things are going on, like it's a football game and a soccer game, et cetera, they make sure that the referees are paid, et cetera. When we had our cuts, we went to Mr. Foley and said, we really, let's try to bring this down a little bit. So he agreed to have it be an hourly based on when we need a person. So that's what this is. What this is the person will be helping when we have multiple events going on at the high school at the same time. And Mr. Foley feels that he needs them. So I want to credit him for his concern about the budget as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Item 7, it is recommended that the board approve the concurrent enrollment program administrative agreement between Sussex County Community College and Vernon Township High School for the fall 21 and spring 22 academic year.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 7?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin, second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm sorry. Item 8, it is recommended that the board approve permitting the following student to attend Vernon Township Public Schools according to Board of Education Policy 5111. Student 10923, child of an employee of the district, be permitted to attend the high school as an 11th grader for the 21-22 school year without payment of tuition.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 8?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin, second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Item 9, it is recommended that the board approve permitting the following students to remain in Vernon Township Public Schools according to Board of Education Policy 5111. Student 12332 be permitted to attend the high school as a 12th grader for the 21-22 school year without payment of tuition.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 9?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second
Second.
by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Item 10 on the addendum, it is recommended that the board approve the following for summer CST meetings at the rate of $40 per meeting.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 10?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin, second
Second.
by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Item H, Ms. Linsky.
For discussion, we have the policies and regulations. Alert number 223 came out, and everyone has a copy of the policies. And we are going to have a discussion, and then the first vote would be at the public meeting next week, and then the second vote would be at the work session in September.
Yes.
After reviewing, does anyone have questions on alert 223?
Okay, seeing none.
Okay. We have bylaw 0155.1, board member participation at board meetings using electronic device. I gave everybody a copy of the new bylaw. And have tried to put in the concerns about having one being able to participate remotely one time per year. So if you want to review that policy, I'll bring it up for first reading next meeting.
Oh, Ms. Linsky, can I just ask one adjustment to be made to close out that was here? One of the amendments is in red, the first up on top, or for childcare issues. Can we also add elder care?
Sure.
Yeah, children and elders. Thank you.
I don't remember talking about voting on it to give people permission. Was that something we talked about?
I don't remember that either. Because it
Which-
talks about,
which-
Told to explore the policy on it, and you have to put you have to put it's not a policy, it's a bylaw. We didn't have one prior to COVID. COVID hit and through the emergency, we were able to do remote meetings.
No, I know all that. I meant the actual, I'm sorry, I just mean that in the policy we're voting on or adopting, it now says that every time somebody wants to be virtual, we vote on whether or not they can be virtual, which I didn't think we discussed. And that seems kind
Okay.
of weird.
It was Strauss Esme, that was their proposed policy, so that's why,
Yeah.
I edited it and.
Do we
Yeah.
need to do it that way, though? I mean.
No, we can change our policy.
Why don't we just say we'll
whatever we
notify,
want.
I think
in the event a
notify,
board member is unable to attend a meeting in
Because I don't
person
wanna-
due
I
to
don't
the
wanna
Before we give
allowable
people
reasons,
permission.
the board member must have, they should just notify the board president,
Yeah.
whoever the board president is.
Yeah.
That's what the word is.
Yeah,
Is
just
everybody
notify
good with
them.
that?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, I'm fine
if
with
you're
that.
gonna be there virtually, let me know so I can let Matt know.
Yeah, that's what we've been
So we
doing.
can- Yeah.
So this is only once during the school year? You can
Yes.
only do
Correct,
this
that was the
once, so
compromise.
workshops, regular meetings. you
That
can only do it
was,
once.
that was a compromise, because at the last meeting there was, or when we discussed this, might have been the one before that. There was two schools of thought. Some people wanted everybody here in person so we could have better, more cohesive conversations. And others felt that that's great, but life also happens at the same time, so we should be flexible. So the compromise was give everybody that allowance, but let's all try to be here. as
So
often.
can we make an additional allowance for work-related stuff? Because reality is that's out of my control and I do travel for work. But to only do it once during a whole entire school year, I like to make the meetings. So, I mean, I guess I could just jump on as a regular taxpayer and watch the meeting, but not have any input. But I think in this day and age, once is a little bit, it's a little bit restricting.
That
You know,
was the
especially
point, though,
because
right?
I'm speaking
Yeah,
from a
there-
personal
No,
note
yeah,
that.
listen, there were other board members, there were board members who didn't want to have any cap on it. So there's two schools of thought for sure. So it's really up to us and what the majority currently wants to do.
Yeah, I'm just speaking for myself here,
Yeah.
knowing what I go through for work. It might be a Tuesday and all of a sudden on a Thursday, I have to go up to Massachusetts or something like that to be at a customer site. So, I mean, once during the school year, I will probably do more than once if it's offered, but only if I have to, because I'm here. If I don't just sit home and jump on there, I'm here. So I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I think once is a little bit restrictive.
Yeah, I'm open to.
There were some people who didn't want to have it at all, and that's why we came up with
This was the
cap.
compromise.
And is that only during the school year? So in the summer, you can do it 6 times?
I think during each school year, it just means July 1st and June 30th.
And,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
One day.
So it's not September to June.
No. They're going on an
No, we were just
academic
talking
year.
about, an academic calendar year.
I don't know, why don't we just,
I don't know, I'm just saying for my,
I mean-
point, once is a little restrictive and,
I'll be honest, with you, but I wanted it restricted.
Yeah, there were,
I mean, people don't come. It's easier not to come if you don't want to make it. I don't know,
The feeling,
certainly
yeah.
trying to get people here.
okay. I'll
So-
just be with the public and make
The
public
feeling that,
comment.
was that it was more effective if people were here in person. That's how the conversation started. I don't know, I could have gone either way a little bit on it, but I do agree that it's more effective if people are here. And so the idea was to cap it to, to one, so that you would really make an effort to be here, which we all,
Am I
I
hearing
mean-
twice? Do we want to change the number, or?
Yeah, I'm willing to move it up only
we
because.
can bat it around, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows what's gonna happen in the
Well,
future.
I don't want Martin going on as a taxpayer, so let's move it.
Yeah, I think
He's
I
already
think
had
there
to
was,
do things as
you know,
taxpayer.
Ray said he was one of the board members who wanted the restriction because there is value to having everybody at the table. But there's also,
I think it's really
we have
important
to be
that,
flexible.
that
There's
we're
also a
all
lack of
here,
value by
you know?
having the board member not here because he can't jump on.
Right.
She-
I think
Or
what,
she's sorry, my bad.
yeah, wow, that was bad, Martin.
You give me a chance.
we also have Martin, I think, was concerned with like executive session. Sometimes it's hard to hear when somebody's on a Zoom call and when everybody's in a meeting. So if we had too many of those meetings.
To give
where
them the
people were remote, it
conversation
would be harder.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
can
is
we
true.
address the concern? Would everybody want to give a little more flexibility by allowing it twice per school year?
I'm fine with twice.
Yeah.
Do I hear three?
Oh, for
Trying to be
God's
nice.
Okay. All right. So we'll change
Go ahead,
that.
yeah.
We'll
All right,
change
so
that to
two
twice
times.
before we have the first reading next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, Ms. Linsky, P164811. Any questions?
164811, right? So we did not have a policy that address, I don't like that policy, you can read it and go either way. Basically, the way I read that policy is that people can participate via YouTube. You actually have.
Oh, wait, no, you're talking about 0167A.
Yes, did I jump?
You jumped
So you
ahead a little
jumped,
bit.
that's right.
Are there
Oh,
any
sorry.
questions on 164811 or 5460?
Thank you.
What was the change in 5460? Because I didn't see anything in red.
There were two, I'm sorry. There were two changes, I think they're in black.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, is
at
that
the
because
first
she,
page.
Ms. Linsky got rid of all our colored ink?
Yes.
Oh.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Mine's
Anyway,
in red.
no red.
Oh,
Letter A, the 130 credits is something the board actually voted on in the spring, but it was never put into policy. It's just reflecting the last board's motion regarding the 130 credits.
Okay.
There is one other change on the second page. So we
Oh,
spoke
I
with,
see.
I'm sorry, that's in bold. It basically speaks to if a child is in their high school senior year and they're on track to meet the district's high school graduation requirements, that they have the ability to leave after they've completed the school day. Meaning it could be a half day or a portion of the day. They still have to fulfill the requirement, which is 4 hours under the requirements. But we do have many students who've met the graduation requirements to graduate, but would like to go to work or would like to study at SCCC, and we're trying to accommodate those students. This is a request from the high school that we've reflected in the policy based on Strauss's wording and recommendation.
Okay, can you clarify the first sentence there that it says 125 credits?
Oh, number 11, and that has to be changed to 130. That's
Does
a
that
good
have to be
catch.
130?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We missed that one. I was talking about the bolded statement underneath. That's the change. That's the addition, actually.
Okay, and the change speaks to the parent requesting that their child be permitted to leave high school after completion. What if the student is 18 years old?
I would have to confirm with our attorney. I'm pretty sure we have a policy on that already, but I don't know the contents of it. I'd have to get clarification on the permission as far as allowing a student to quote, sign themselves out. I don't know
yeah.
the.
I don't know how you can require parental consent for
Yeah.
an 18-year-old.
I don't think we can.
Yeah.
But they'd also have to qualify under the provisions of this addition, meaning that they would have had to meet the graduation requirements and have a need to depart early. I can get clarification on that from our attorney.
Okay. Any other questions on these two policies? Okay, 0167A, that is the policy and public participation in board meetings. Ms. Linsky caught that when we spoke about changing the public participation format to no longer allowing the email comments, we said that we were going to stop that after the next policy went into effect because of the prior policy, but she caught that the prior policy doesn't speak to email comments at all. So that was something we were allowing based on the governor's now expired guidance on public meetings. So I think your point in bringing this up was that we can stop the email comments effective.
You can stop them today and we will advertise in the future that the email comments will
Right.
not. We won't include that.
But we will be allowing comments, public, by the members of the public attending virtually through the live stream.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
Mhm.
Because it says here by submitting comments or asking questions through the district's YouTube channel, same rules, yada, yada. And the last line is, in order for them to be read into the record. I thought the idea was so that nobody sitting at this table has to read somebody else's comments. The idea was to still have the Zoom open so that the member of the public can make their comments directly. Is that where we're headed? Or
Yes.
did I-
Yes.
Okay.
So
I
we're
And
still
just-
this
going
is
to
just-
allow
This
them.
is a very confusing, like, I think you guys wrote this policy. This
We
didn't
did,
come from
'cause-
Strauss Esme. So reading it, it's very difficult to interpret.
So
So,
saying about our writing.
sorry.
They were not
I think we
lawyers.
threw it together in a board meeting.
So I would say you take out by submitting comments or just asking questions, right? Members of the public may participate in public participation portion of the meeting by asking questions through the district's YouTube
No,
channel.
that's not what we want to do.
No,
No,
through Zoom.
yeah, through the Zoom.
It has to
Through
be through
Zoom.
Zoom,
Yep, okay.
because we don't want anybody at the table to have
This
to read somebody else's comments.
0167A is expired as of,
Yes, that's why I
February
took off
1st.
February 1, because it
Um,
expired.
so we really should just modify it 0167. Right?
I guess we could. I'm not sure how that reads.
I don't have a copy of that.
Right,
in
I
front of
don't
me.
either, but I can look into that.
And we just need a line allowing public participation through the Zoom live stream.
Okay.
Can
But-
we get a draft of that for the next board meeting, over email prior to that?
Yes,
So that way we could vote on that at the next meeting.
Justin, does that same policy dictate when within our agenda, people can make public comment for stuff, let's say on the agenda and off the agenda? Does that same policy dictate when that will be, or is that just
That's a
something
practice.
That's just a practice?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe that's just a practice that we implemented. I don't believe that's delineated in the policy anywhere, but we have to look. Did you have a comment on that?
Only because, I mean, it's off of what we're talking about here. It's not even on the same subject really, but I was always a proponent of taking all the public comment at the beginning there. You know, these people who want to make comments that aren't on, it's going to be 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
These people have been gracious enough to sit here the whole time waiting for us to go through a whole bunch of stuff. So, I mean, how much longer would it take in the beginning of the meeting for all public comment? Maybe another 20 minutes? And, you know, if people have to go home, they go home. You know, it's not like we're trying to keep them here.
I completely agree with you. I think it's something that's been brought up in the past and I supported in the past, but it has been shut down by the majority, but we have a different board, different members. So that might be something
Might
that
be a
we
good
want to,
agenda item to discuss
Yeah.
at some point in time.
we
because-
should discuss that at,
It's also not required. I mean, the public comment's required, of course. But I've never seen it in my previous districts of having it parsed out between two different sections. on the
Right.
agenda.
I completely agree. I think that it's more respectful to the members of our
Yeah.
community to allow them to part,
Yeah.
you know,
They
we
got
signed
lives,
up,
they got
we
kids,
signed
they
up
gotta
for
be
this,
home,
you know, we knew we would be here late on Thursday nights twice a month.
And sometimes we create that lateness ourselves.
Yeah, but we have members of the public who have important things to talk to us about, so.
I think it would be great to let people speak about anything in the beginning, but there
Yes.
should also be public comment at the end because sometimes they want to comment on what they heard.
That's a good
And
point.
If you
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah, we
if
can
you don't
keep
allow
two.
them.
But just
Yeah.
get rid of
But
the
it's pretty much
restriction.
open
Otherwise, they
session
have
for
to
both.
listen to us
Just
and they
open
can't say
both.
anything, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
And I remember, I mean, building on what Justin said, it's true. Once we had a student who waited the whole end and then stood up and said, I'm a student, I have to get up and go to high school. We were all like.
And that's why we
when
changed it. Yeah.
Changed it. We said any students with anything to
Yeah.
say about anything, you can go first so they could get home. But yeah, so we could
So-
change it.
Is-
Just for direction for us as we have to develop the agenda.
Yeah,
Is that something that the board is moving to? Is that a consensus? Is that something you'd like us to implement next time? Just
What do you guys
give us some direction.
I would
I'm-
support the change
Yeah.
early and
Charles?
later.
Absolutely.
Joe,
Good.
is that a Ned?
Yeah.
He's
Head
nodding.
nod?
We got
Or
the
he's
Joe
falling
nod.
asleep. one or
Okay,
the other.
Teresa,
Yeah, I think what Jen said, we should still have two, but open for anything, both of them.
Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I would support that. I would definitely support that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that that's great.
Good, thank
We
you.
talked about this in the past and it's a long time coming.
I think it's important. I mean, like, why would they want to sit through that whole thing?
Thank you for
It
bringing
is
it up.
exciting.
I'm sorry. to-
Why do you guys want to sit? Just get up now. Go ahead.
We're almost there.
We're gonna,
We're hurrying.
okay. All right, and then for the next meeting, we are not gonna be accepting email comments. We should modify our public advertisement.
Yep.
And for the next agenda, we'll modify the public participation section. There's consensus on both those. Okay. Okay. Recommendations.
It is recommended that the board approve professional development travel that complies with the provisions of NJSA 18A11-12.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 1?
So moved.
Ms. Coughlin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments?
I have a comment. I just want to say thank you to the administration. If you look under the third column there, every single one of the items are being funded by grants. So kudos to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Smaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther.
Yes.
Recommendation 2.
So
It's
moved.
recommended the board approve the chapter 192, 193 non-public services agreement between Vernon Township Board of Ed and Sussex County Ed Services
Okay,
Commission.
so can we have a motion for recommendation 2?
Motion.
I just,
By Ms. Coughlin.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell.
Oh
Questions
my
or
God.
comments? I'm sorry. Ms. Mitchell.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have, I could just say approve the rest.
Oh, no, if you want to read the first sentence, that's fine.
Okay.
Roll call vote for recommendation 2 on the agenda.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
abstain.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It is recommended the board approve the agreement for ancillary educational services for the 2021-2022 school year between the Vernon Township Public Schools and the Sussex County Ed Services Commission.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 3 on, as it's written on the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could you please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendation 4.
It is recommended the board approves professional support non-public services agreement between Vernon Township Board of Education and Ed Services Commission of Morris County.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 4 on the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It is recommended the board approve Challenger Fence, Inc. to install fencing at Glad Meadow School for $10,582.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 5?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments?
Just like to say this is a success with communication with the Special Education Parent Advisory Group brought this concern to our attention to keep students safe. And now here it is, come to fruition after a few months. So this is a success story. So thank you to all involved.
Thank you, Teresa.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It is recommended the board approve a service consulting agreement with ECTS Educational Consortium for telecommunication savings in the amount of $1,200 to assist in the preparation of the applications and documentation for the EFC for mobile hotspots and Chromebooks to be funded at
motion.
100%.
We have a motion for recommendation 6.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments?
Nice
Seeing-
grant, Matt.
Good job, Mr. Shea.
Thank
Yay.
you.
Where is he?
Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yeah.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes,
It is recommended the board approve playground installation at Glen Meadow Middle School in the amount of $11,391.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 7 on the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms.
Second.
Mitchell, second by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Abstain.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
It is recommended the board approve, accept the funds for Title 1A SIA in the amount of $14,900.
We have a motion for recommendation 8.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Can we please have a roll call vote? Oh, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
It is recommended the board refuse the funds for Title III in the amount of $2,997.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 9?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Coughlin, second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments?
Why?
Why?
You
You
know,
can't accept it unless it's over $10,000. You have to put a consortium together with other schools. Other schools that we've reached out to are not interested in doing that because it's such a minimal amount. The federal government gives this grant out, and usually districts should not get more than $10,000. So this is sort of standard operating procedure on this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
It is recommended that the board accept the funds awarded to the Anita M. Lowry 21st Century Community Learning Center's competitive grant in the amount of $350,000 for the initial project year.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 10?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Smaglia. Questions or comments? Fantastic work on that. I mean, that's fantastic.
Bravo.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, could we please get a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Happily, yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
It is recommended the board approve the application and accept the funds for the American Rescue Plan IDA consolidated in the amounts listed below, 131 for thousand for IDEA basic and 11,236 IDEA preschool.
We have a motion for recommendation 11.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Mitchell, second by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
It's recommended that the board approve to move funds from the operating account to the food service account for delinquent accounts reclassified to bad debt as follows. Inactive adults, $390.25. Students, $21,127.24.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 12?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? So this was something that we discussed at our last work session. This format of structuring this in this way, is this permissible with the auditors? Have we
Yes,
looked into this with the county?
Yeah, we cannot subsidize the food service account. So if there is delinquent accounts, the money needs to be moved from the general account into the food service account.
Okay, so you can formally write it off as bad debt because
Yes,
many of these accounts are going back years,
yes.
right? Okay.
So this is students that didn't pay for lunch, basically?
Yes.
And it goes back years. So this isn't 1 year. This is
So that, yeah, so this
accumulated
is
over
something that,
time.
yeah, the board and the business office, and the central administrators have talked about this for the last few years, and it kind of came to a head with COVID, but stopped because we started getting federal funding for lunch. But it was, how do we go about collecting bad debts on student accounts? Because there's some districts that follow through with the practice of turning off access to online portals. Many districts will give students a alternative lunch, which many board members have expressed significant opposition to, because what would happen in some districts is a student would get all the way through a line with a tray of food, go to charge their lunch, see that their account was overdrawn, and then that food, which is already on their tray, would be taken away from them, and they'd be given a cheese sandwich or a peanut butter sandwich, which is, you're shaming the student for circumstances beyond their control. That, or that, at least that's the feeling of many board members, from just trying to give you the background of this conversation.
If we have a student that's continually doing this, does somebody reach out to the parents and maybe try to
Every 2 weeks,
assist
they get a
them?
notice.
What's that?
Every 2 weeks, they get a notice.
No, I mean, like, to reach
Yeah.
out to the parents, maybe the parents have a little bit of an issue going on, or maybe they need to really apply for subsidized
Yes, so
lunch or something like
so
that. Maybe
that's-
they're having,
They
maybe they're a
do.
little too
We
proud
do.
to do it. Maybe we could kind of get them going or something,
Well, right now, we have free lunches.
Right,
for
so it doesn't
everyone
matter.
From
Yeah, but
last
we-
year and this year.
And the direction in the past was that building administrators and the business office would reach out to
Oh,
these
good,
families.
good.
And we also want to take the socioeconomic needs of our families in town. And one of the attitudes always was, if by law the children have to be in school,
Mhm.
they can't just get up and leave, and they're cutting.
Right.
We really should be, feeding them at minimum.
Right.
Can't start.
In the next policy alert, you're going to see more on food service.
Right, can we please, so we have a motion in a second.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
we
okay,
do.
can we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
No,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes,
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Lutner,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
It is recommended the board approve the following financial reports, a list of checks, with the hand checks, transfers, and purchase
can we have a
orders.
motion for recommendation
So
13?
moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second
Second.
by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes,
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain is noted.
Mrs. Lutner,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
okay, the motion carries, and that is, there's nothing on the agenda. So that is it. That was a marathon. Okay, itemized for public participation for items on the agenda or other business.
did we do?
Mrs.
one?
Zabula, before you speak, Trevor, thank you very much to Trevor, to your patience and for being here.
And
You,
can I also
you really
say,
are amazing.
what a
don't-
tall,
I didn't know.
fine young man you've become. I haven't seen you in person in so long. It's great to see you. You look great, Trevor.
So, hi, my name is Karen Zapula from Highland Lakes, and I'm here to speak about the rotating schedule at the high school. And this is why my son came with me and sitting so patiently to wait. So according to the Department of Education, school opening is supposed to be more flexible in the beginning of the year for your students. I'm not hearing anything about being flexible on this schedule. Also being told Trevor will get used to this schedule is not right to say. You have no idea what may work for one student, doesn't mean it will work for all. This is why we have an IEP for students. By saying Trevor will get used to this is saying he will have no choice but to get used to the schedule. If that's the case, then you're not following your school policy, if I did read this correctly, number 2310, in the student grouping dated April 1st, 05. I am still waiting for answers why parents and students of freshmen were not being told about this rotating schedule. Back when our kids were making their schedules up, we could have been informed how this was going to work. Students and parents could have discussed this with their caseworkers for students who have IEPs And for those students who do not have IEPs, they could be sitting down with their counselors and discuss this. You did not come up with a plan that would work for these students. You decided to jump right into this and not consider the students that this will affect with or without special needs. If you really care how this may affect some of our students, your students, then you would come up with a plan that would work for all students. Plan A, Plan B, rotating, not rotating. Parent public input is supposed to be done. There was no parent public input done, no survey on rotating schedules for freshmen. Parents had no idea. I went through all the Board of Ed meetings the past year, no discussion about rotating schedules. I'm sorry, but without a Plan B for any student, this plan may not work for them. You're setting them up for failure and to induce more anxiety. If you would like, you could even reach out to the Department of Education, Kim Murray, Acting Director of Special Needs. She may be able to come up with some kind of plan to help to put in place for those students that, again, the schedule may not work for them. Finding the option for scheduling more difficult than needed. The SEL program, Social Emotional Learning, helps students be successful, is very important. If you're already causing stress to some of your students, how is this going to help them? You can offer an aid or give them a new schedule every day. This will eradicate or not fix the solution. You're causing the same problem. I do hope you will reconsider your plan and come up with a Plan B. Here's a suggestion. Here, to let freshmen keep a set schedule for the first marking period. Slowly introduce them to a rotating schedule. This schedule may cause a lot of stress and school refusal. This is not the best way to start out a new school year. I also would like to know if this plan was submitted to the county and the state for approval. If it was, I would like to see a copy of the approval plan and if I may pick it up tomorrow morning. If nobody approved this plan, then I would like to know how you came up with this. And do you have a Plan B? Has this been a research house base plan? We are still in this pandemic. There are students who have not been in school for the last year and a half who will be impacted by this plan. My son Trevor has not been in school for 2 years. 7th grade, we was in for a month. We had a lot of bullying issues. His anxiety was through the roof, panic attacks, so forth. He was bedside tutoring. When we were finally getting him to be where he needed to be emotionally, which was my main concern, then he was ready to come back. We got hit with COVID. So again, he was out of school. 8th grade came, and then when schools were starting to reopen, because of the rotating with the schedule, blue team, gold team, in 2 days, in 3 days, was too much for Trevor. We were discussing it and felt that it would be better for him to stay home. On a positive note, we started talking about, well, you know what? We're putting this all behind. We're going to start September, freshmen. It's all new, brand new school. You'll have Monday through Friday. We'll be back. Hopefully that keeps going forward, have a set schedule. 2 weeks before, I'm just finding out about this rotating schedule. And I did reach out to other parents with freshmen. No freshman parent had any idea. The only way is somebody read August 5th, I believe, was an email. And the email said August events. So of course you have busy, who's going away, who has older siblings, getting ready for college. You see the August events in that email. The majority is thinking, well, this has to do with August, nothing to do with school, so you're not going to read it. As I'm reading, just to find out if there was something in there, as you got to the bottom, all it said, high school rotating schedule, and that was it. So this is my concern. Today, we did go to the high school, and for Trevor to meet with his counselor, Mrs. McDougall, we went on a tour. All of that was very positive. And again, just talking about the rotating schedule, his anxiety was going through the roof. And as we were leaving, they wanted to know if he had any questions, if everything's okay. And I saw it on his face and I knew everything that they were presenting. He wound up meeting one of his teachers. He knows his math teacher who was a tutor for him, but that did not help. For right away, he said, I'm not happy. I have the rotating schedule. It's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to come to school. So before school even starts, I'm having these issues with him. So I hope that maybe you can understand my frustration on this matter, come up with a plan. And I thank you for your time, but this is why I waited to the end, because it's really important. And my main goal is to get my son back to school and have a positive effect and for him to be comfortable. And also in his IEP, it stated that too many transitions is very harmful for Trevor. And what, like I said, what may say that it may work for a lot of the students. I know science lab was a big issue with them missing. I know some students that came first period was really tired if they had math, that maybe by the 8th period, they weren't as tired. And that's great if that's going to help them. But again, it's not for all. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Felsey, Town Center. One of the other things that I noticed was not brought up at all with this moving 15 minutes is my second and third graders won't be getting off the bus until almost 5 p.m. Which I'm in this a little bit of a unique position where I have a high schooler, I have a freshman, incoming freshman, but I also still have primary school students. And while I would theoretically be thrilled about a slightly later start time for the high school students, because I do think that it is too early, my kids aren't going to be walking in the door until dinner time. And it was practically dusk by the time they were getting off in the midst of the winter last year. And now you're pushing it off another, 15, 20 minutes by the time they get off the bus. While I do agree with changing start times, I think the solution to this answer is the transportation. This 3 different start times for three separate sections of the school doesn't work. And I know that with the shortage of bus drivers kinds of runs into that issue as well. But next year, it's going to take me 3 hours, more than 3 hours to get my kids off to school in the morning. And then close to the same for them to all get home in the evenings. And I think that's a little excessive. I can't imagine if I was to work a full-time job, how I would handle that. At least from a parent perspective. And that was kind of just a bit of the separating the public participation sections. I know I could have talked about this hours ago at this point, but I really do value the input to hear what's going to be said about it, and then that's kind of why I sat around for an obscene amount of time. But thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Zoe Heath, Highland Lake section of Vernon. I'll be brief. I first wanted to say thank you for starting to change your position on public participation. It's wonderful that Vernon live streams their meetings, let alone let people participate from home. There are areas of the county, both at the local and county level, where we're fighting to get them to even film their meetings. So that level of wanting to have input from the public is really, really good to see. And then the other thing I just wanted to address was, I don't think anybody envies anyone involved in schools right now, faculty, staff, school board members, because it is just a really tough time for everybody, but especially for our students. So just thank you all for the work you're doing, because we can tell it's tough. So thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe.
Stayed this long and you're not going to say anything? Oh, okay. Okay. Anybody attending virtually who would like to comment, please raise your hand at this time. Okay, seeing none, we will close it to the public and open it to the board at open board member forum. It wasn't set to be on the agenda tonight, so I appreciate that Martin did raise his concerns about the public participation. That is something the board has brought up a few times in the past. and there wasn't support at the time. I'm glad that, different members, and we've come around to a new position on that, because I think that the more accessible we are to public input, the better. So, thank you. Anything else for open board member forum?
I was at Glen Meadow this week for the orientation. I just want to recognize that it was a good participation by the community.
Sure was.
And the staff did a very great job, administration, and we had a bunch of student helpers. So I just want to recognize them.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to point out, I saw today on newjersey.com, the high school football preview 2021, New Jersey's top offensive linemen and other top people movers. One of our seniors, a Vernon senior, is listed in this article. So congratulations, and it's great to see one of our own has made this list. I am biased, being married to a college football player who was a lineman, so I understand the toll it takes on their body, but the love of the sport, and it's great to see that our student is doing so well, and great to be represented. So thank you, and good luck to all of our upcoming fall sports, to all the coaches, students, athletes, and everybody involved.
Scrimmages start next week.
Do they? Yeah, you're so happy and healthy here. So.
Now, do they have to wear masks while they're playing yet? Is that a mandate yet or no? Just when they walk into the school?
It's covered under strenuous activity or aerobic and aerobic activity.
Right.
Exceptions.
When
It's
you go
interesting because
inside
that was always there, but yet we made our children wear masks last year.
No, if they were playing, they didn't have to wear them, but I think when they were on the sideline, they had to wear them in socially distanced.
My daughter played volleyball. She had to wear the mask. So did all the other teams. So
Last
that's
year was
why,
a blur.
yeah, I know, I know. I'm just, but I'm glad that they don't have to this year because they hate it.
Was volleyball outside? though?
No,
So that's why.
it was in the gym.
Anything outside, you didn't need to wear masks.
but
So-
now they don't have to wear it inside now, do they?
They clarified the strenuous.
They have to wear it
activity.
inside unless they are participating in strenuous. activity.
Okay, so they clarified
Yeah,
that.
they
That's
can
what I
take it
said.
off for phys ed.
Right.
Not knocking.
Okay.
Wish they would have worn.
Anything?
I'm
Anything
making
else
my
for
son
open
wear
board
his
members?
mask for hockey this year.
That is very.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second by Mr. O'Donnell. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, we are.